Hello.
Hope everybody's having a good morning so far. Sorry we're a little bit late today. We're up late last night working, and we did not get up as early as we usually do. So, I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope you're all sort of working through the program. And if you have questions, I hope you'll stop and ask. Today we were going to talk about sort of what lives inside us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have any thoughts about that before I start?
Well, as we've been working this through with other people, all sorts of things come out that I hadn't thought of, or I hadn't thought of in a particular way, or didn't realize certain things were problems, or just maybe not necessarily problems, but just the way
Like
things
challenges for people.
or the way things are.
I think that, okay, so what prompted this, so I asked a few questions on my personal Facebook this week, and I think I was really shocked about the answers, like troubled shocked, as in went to bed with a heavy heart shocked, and so I was trying to figure out where and what words I could use or say that, that also made an impact on me. So what we were talking about was, and I should read this first. I should read this quote by Gandhi that I found years and years ago, but didn't really know how to apply. Like years ago. Like I think when I was in high school, I really latched onto this. So this is a famous quote. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. And so I think that, you could just go, oh, that's a nice poem. And I think that's what I did for a lot of years. I thought, oh, well, that's a nice poem. But did it really apply to me? And so really what we're talking about today is sort of just like what lives inside you, what speech ends up coming out because of what lives inside you. That's where, like I said, excuse me, I made this Facebook post this week that really was just me pondering, like, what is it with the F word that everybody, and it's not just that, it's just like speech in general, but mostly it was that word because it's so overused, like constantly. And people use it in such the wrong context half the time. And, well, they use it as a noun, they use it as a verb, they use it as an adjective, they use it as... And I'm like completely blown away by it a lot of times. And I'm not talking about you're really angry and you stubbed your toe, or you're really angry at something that the president of our country said, or you're really angry at something that somebody else said, or you're really angry
Some gross injustice.
Yes, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about like the way it's like it's super pervasive.
Like it's being used.
We're not talking about Sam Jackson and the way he uses it. We're talking about
like somebody talks about a bowl of soup and they use it.
Yes. This is the best effing soup I've ever had. Since yesterday.
Since effing yesterday.
And so it really sort of got us like, and it really doesn't have anything to do with our religious persuasion per se. While Eric sort of grew up with that, like with like a more tempered mouth, I did not. I do remember, I sort of had this, I was thinking about this yesterday. I remember the first time that my mother said the F word. I think I was a senior in high school, and I remember thinking, does she even know what that word is? And then, like, of course, now I look back at it and I go, duh, of course she knew what that word was. But it was just one of those, like, she had never said it before, and so it was, like, super shocking to me. And that's where we're talking. It's like, shock value is one thing. But do you remember when we were sitting at Comic-Con last year?
Yeah.
And I had just gotten a new phone. Like, so we go to Comic-Con every year, and we have professional status. And so there's this place where you go and you get in early. So we sit there. Well, we don't really get in early, but we have a spot that's other professionals. I don't even know where this... She was a kid. I call her a kid, and I probably used to offend everybody who's in their 20s. I just was like... And then I feel old. I had just gotten a new phone. And so, you're like moving into a new phone... Hadn't done anything with the ringtones. I think I had gotten the new phone like the day before or 2 days before that. So I hadn't changed the ringtones or anything. I don't even think anybody had called me. Like, I hadn't even hadn't even gotten a phone call, and so it hadn't occurred to me that I needed to change the ringtone from the annoying like Samsung ringtone that it was the default. And she like went off. This girl, like, remember, she like went off about how effing this and effing that, and she can't effing believe that people have that effing ringtone, and don't they know that you can effing get more ringtones, and on and on and on. And she was sitting like 3 feet from us, not talking directly to us, like we weren't even in the room. It was just so surreal. It was so strange. And so, you know, it's sort of like at that point I was like, that's when we started having conversations about, man, people use that word and they use it like in such the wrong way. And I think it's become very habitual for our culture. And people keep telling me it's not just American culture. It's like everywhere. Everywhere people use, and in places where people really didn't use those words.
But I guess it makes me wonder, is someone just so angry that it comes out? They're looking for the negative and things to complain about everywhere they go, so that just...
Because it's definitely not hardly ever used in a really positive way.
No. I mean...
This is the effing best piece of cake I ever had.
I mean, sometimes I hear that.
Sometimes, but like not. Usually it's because of somebody's negative dialogue. Like they can't, and so what made us think about it from a parenting perspective this week was I started thinking about at what point did I clean up my language? Because I could talk like a sailor, like even in my early parenting years. I know you don't know me in those years, but...
Well,
lack of sleep and being married to a crazy person will do that to you.
Allergy stuff going on.
Oh yeah, his eyes are all red today. I promise, even
crying.
though we live in Ocean Beach, he's not stoned.
And I'm not crying.
He's not crying. No. He's got allergy stuff going on this morning. But no, I was thinking about what really got me going on having a better mouth, and it was not religion, because at the time I was nowhere near where I am now spiritually. I was like spiritually seeking, but it was really deeper than that. It was like on a soul level that I was trying to figure things out. And I was a mom to 3 young kids, and like I said, I was in an unhealthy marriage, and really frustrated at myself, and really frustrated at him, and really frustrated at my situation. And so the anger, it just lived in me. It was, so I thought it was interesting because in the thread that I posted the other day, somebody said, well, you're not authentic if you don't use this word, or if you don't use these words. And I thought, like maybe from your perspective, maybe you're being authentic in your space that you're in now. And so I really pondered, you know, like, that was my authentic self. That was who I was. That was who I was at the time. But I didn't like who I was. And I can't imagine that anybody that has that anger inside of them really likes who they are. And so at the time I was studying, I was planning to homeschool. I was studying the work of Rudolf Steiner, because I was really, back then, you know, this was 100 years ago, there was nothing to really distill it for me. I remember when I bought this book, Rhythms of Learning, and it was like this huge eye-opener, because there was somebody that was actually condensing stuff and helping me dig deeper, but that wasn't there when I first started my journey. And so really what words I'm going to read to you today are the words from Steiner. I pulled them out of this book because it's easier to find for me. They're the words from Steiner that made me stop in my tracks and go, I need to change who I am inside. I need to change how I'm approaching the world, how I'm thinking about the world, what my deserve level of self is, because so much of it goes to deserve level of self. And in fact, before I read this quote, I think there was a lady that said something to me, the friend of ours that said something the other day, and we were having a religious discussion, but this isn't really religious in that nature. She said we have this commandment in the Christian world that it says you should love thy neighbor as thyself. Mm-hmm. And people forget the thyself part, that you have to love thyself first. You can't love your neighbor or anybody if you don't love yourself. So I thought, because I had never thought about that commandment that way, ever. I was sort of in the back of my head, and I guess I assumed other people do too and carry this bias, but you know, that it was like you should love your neighbor. But it's not just that. It's that you should love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. So if you don't love yourself, It's easy to be mad at your neighbor all the time. It's easy to be angry. And so anyway, so I wanted to read you this quote right here is when I was studying, when my children were very little. So they would have probably been 6, 4, and 2, maybe about there. Maybe younger, maybe 5, 3, and 1, my older children. So this is a quote from Rudolf Steiner in his lectures, Kingdom of Childhood, That Kingdom of Childhood. There are things that matter most for young children. What you say, what you teach, does not yet make an impression, except insofar as children imitate what you say in their own speech. You having problems with your kids imitating you? But it is important. But it is important what you are. That's what matters. If you are good, this goodness will appear in your gestures. If you are bad-tempered, this will also appear in your gestures. And then he goes on to say, and this is from Trostley, who's the guy who wrote the book, we must become ever conscious of ourselves and committed to our strivings. We must work to transform ourselves so that the children in our care will be nourished, there's my annoying ringtone, by the truth. Will be nourished by the truth. And where did it go? And beauty and goodness living in our thoughts, words, and deeds. Sorry, my phone rang and it got me all distracted there for a minute. So I think that it's this realization that we have such huge impact. You know?
Well, I thought more about it as I'm around kids more and more. And when I see other people's kids that seem really angry, then I go, what's going on at home? Why is this kid so angry?
Well, yeah, and I think that was something that we were realizing about just people in general, and how it comes through in their children. If their children are acting that way, and that's not what we want in our house, you know, we were sort of like, oh wow, we realized that we have a lot more peace than we thought we did. And it all comes from what you're thinking inside. So if you're really struggling you're still struggling with fighting with each other, or you're struggling with children that are fighting constantly, you have to step back and you have to look at yourself, and you have to look at sort of, you know, where you are at and how you're feeling. And if you're having trouble yelling constantly, you know, I can remember a time when I remember my mom saying to me, Melissa, I can't believe you yell so much. And my kids were little. They were really little. It was before you and I met. And because that's what lived inside me. And yeah, I can yell now. Bless you. I can yell now, for sure. But that's not my mode of acting on a regular basis. And that's not, like, what you see is really what you get. And so, I found it really interesting. And I think that what we want to impart to you is that just think about, even if you're one of those, because I had a lot of people on that thread go, if you don't effing like it, then you can effing not be my friend. And I was like, wow. People just really don't care what they say. And so I'm thinking, do you kiss your child with that mouth? And I know that just sounded like my grandmother, but...
Well, it creates the environment that you live in.
It does. It totally creates the environment that you live in. So, you know, this isn't a video to be preachy. It's just to think about what's coming out of your mouth, and before it comes out of your mouth, because, you know, that's what Gandhi was saying. It lives up here first, and it lives in your heart, and then it's coming out that way. And so when it's, you know, when it's coming out, it started somewhere. It didn't originate on your lips. It originated in your head and in your heart. So if you've got those things going on, especially when there's a lot of anger behind things, and a lot of anger, and, you know, we live in a time that, I get it, that people are more angry. You know, especially like right now, we're filming this in 2017. We've had a lot of political stuff that, not just in the United States, but I think everywhere is sort of politically, like, people aren't feeling safe. And I'm assuming that's probably going to get worse before there's a revolution of people, or it gets better. But you can't raise children in a space where you are constantly angry. I mean, you can. It just isn't pretty for everybody. You're not going to have peace in your home.
Well, there's been times that we've had conversations about, I've probably listened to and watched too much news, and it's made me angry. Yeah. And then it's like, you need to focus on what's going on in our home, because there's some of that stuff you can't do anything about. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And if it is stuff that if it is something you can do something about, then you should do something about it. But that's being constructive, not destructive. And so, and then it's also, it goes to like, how are you going about it? So I can remember one of my favorite quotes from Mother Teresa was somebody had asked her back during the Vietnam War, will you come to an anti-war rally? And she said, no, but if you have a peace rally, I'll be right there. So there's a difference. There's a difference between, and we see this a lot in politics. Like there were, there's often an anti-somebody campaign rather than a pro-somebody else campaign. And so if we're anti what's going on right now in this country rather than pro pushing the good, then it's a huge difference in energy. Huge difference in energy. And if you don't believe us, I mean, I think that you don't have to, for sure, but when we know that when we're in a happy, centered place and we're working for the good and pushing the good and promoting the good, our lives are prosperous. When we're not, life can suck.
Well, I mean, not to get too much stuck on politics, but the last few election cycles, I noticed that people are voting against somebody rather than for somebody. Rather than for somebody. And I think that if all of the people that were voting against somebody decided that they could get behind somebody and vote for somebody, and a lot of it is we had to have a poor selection of candidates sometimes. I always tell people, in California, I can write in anybody I want. I wrote in Jesus. My son voted for me. It's kind of a weird thing. When people say, who'd you vote for? I can truly say I voted for Jesus. It's not a lie. But I think that it is about like getting behind somebody that you can support. So if you're in a spot where you're really struggling, and one thing that we really realized was it starts local. The national stuff, at least in the United States, we can't have a whole lot of impact on. Especially, we live in a state where everybody's going to vote one direction. Not the people, the direction. And so I think that in order to really enact change, it has to start at home. It has to start in your home first, and then in your community, and then you can get bigger. But it has to start in that home first. So if you have peace in your home, then you can spread peace around you. If you don't have peace in your home, I'm sorry for you, because it's hard. I've been there. And we've been there. We've had times when, especially when we were still fighting with my ex-husband, like this is no joke, the first 6 years of our marriage were in litigation with my ex-husband. So that was fun times. And it was within that construct, we had to find things that brought us peace, because otherwise we wouldn't be at peace. Mm-hmm. We would be angry all the time. And being angry all the time is bad for your body and bad for your soul. And when I had my stroke, I know it was because I spent too much time in anger when we lived in Utah, and anger and frustration. And I'm like the queen of trying to be zen. And there was still stuff that was really sticking to me. So when we moved to San Diego, I think my body was like, okay, I can give up now. You're in a safe place. So I think that really you have to get to that place. And if you're struggling, like really struggling with, okay, how do I get out of this anger and frustration place? Because I do get a lot of messages like that. Like, how do I stop being so mad at my partner? How do I stop being so angry at my children? So first you have to really think about why you're angry, and anger is a secondary emotion. Right? Anything to say? I'm talking a lot today. No, I think I'm good. I think I'll make some friends with Visine here in a minute.
Your eyes. I'm so sorry. His eyes look sad. Yeah. So I think that if you can get it in your body and in your soul to be happy, then it spreads, and it's contagious. And it's contagious. It starts with you. If you can't find a happy space within yourself, then you're not going to be able to expect other people to find that happy space. You have to find it within yourself first. It begins with you. It starts and finishes with you, actually. That doesn't just begin. It's all about how you're like viewing the world and how you're approaching things. And, first get to the bottom of why you're so angry, and then just decide. It's like a decision. And we tell our kids that all the time. You have to decide. What was that? Oh, moving something off the screen. You have to decide you want to be happy. It is a choice. It is a choice. And yes, I believe there's depression and there's chemical imbalances and there's all those things, but there's so much to help you with that today. And I'm not just talking about Big Pharma, because we're not Big Pharma supporters, although, you know, Big Pharma is like still saving my life every day as I pop a pill for my blood pressure. But there's so many other things you can do. If you're really struggling with being out of balance and depression, start with your diet. Diet is huge. Huge. And I think it's one that I know from what I'm hearing from moms, it's one that dads, it's really hard for dads to start with a diet, because often you're gone all day. It's really easy to just grab a burger. It's really easy to just get that candy bar. Sorry, my nose is all itchy today. His eyes, my nose. It's easy to grab a candy bar. It's easy to grab soda. It's easy to do that. And it's easier to do that than it is to get something that's not bad for you and that does not drag you down. It does not mess with your, what you've got going on in your body and how your outlook on life. And people don't really think about things like sugar being a depressant and gluten, especially if you have gluten sensitivity, being a depressive. Okay. I promise we slept. But it is those things, and those are just two allergens that seem to be the most popular ones. And that doesn't mean you can't ever have sugar. My gosh, we have a problem with sugar. We get it. But it means that, if you're conscious of it, it's a lot better than it helps your diet a ton, and your diet helps your outlook. So anyway, I feel like we're rambling now, and I don't mean to ramble. So sorry. We really just want you to think about the words that come out of your mouth, and that they impact yourself, and that they impact your children, and it impacts the peace that you have in your home, and it impacts the peace of the people around you. And you become like the 5 people you're around the most. So make them good people. I have 5 children. I had a huge push to make them all good people, because I was with them all the time, every day. So anyway, hope you guys have a good week. I hope things are going well for you in the program. If you have questions, please drop us a note. If you have comments, struggles, let us know. Have a good week. Bye.